Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Routledge, which is a Taylor and Francis Group company. It's one of the textbook series for primarily for students and lecturers, and this one's on competition law and policy in the European Union and the United Kingdom. Now in a 5th edition, it's a standard work, and it's been written by Barry J. Rodger and Angus MacCulloch. And we've given it a review. My wife and I looked at the book, discussed it, we've produced a review which is on the web and in the journals, and we've given it the following title: A well-established and student-friendly text on EU and UK competition law, now in a new edition, and it's also available as an e-book. Now before I just run into the review itself, let me show you the book. And there it is, you can see the Routledge logo there, 5th edition, that's the front, the spine, and then the back. There's a lot of stuff on the back which gives you quotes and detail about what's in the book. It is actually an e-book, but there isn't any form of website that goes with it. Some of the Routledge books do have a complimentary website to assist, but not with this one. There's the index, which is at the back, you can see, and then you actually go straight in. This is actually part 3 of the book on mergers. You've got subheadings on the side, you've got quite a lot of footnotes. There isn't any paragraph numbering in this particular publication, but you do have quite a useful way of actually structuring the book. Let me give you an example. With the chapter headings, you've got a chapter heading, then you've got a little mini index for the chapter. Then what you've got is you then launch into an overview, an introduction and a history, just to give you a good bit of background. Then if I go to the previous chapter, what you get right at the end is key points and a discussion, and then you have further reading specific to probably to the articles, the relevant articles, and also other links. Then you've got what they call pricing strategies, then you have essential facilities, and then you have also a number of other areas which are all effectively further reading research tools directly connected with the particular chapter. That earlier chapter is actually on the control of abuse of dominance, but then it goes into, as I say, market investigations, and you can see from the structure what you've actually got by way of content for each chapter itself. There's the front page explaining what the book is all about, then the actual front bit itself. Then you've got the contents, and you can see how much there is by way of content. There are 8 main chapters in total there. Then after that you've got a little acknowledgement section. Then you have a list of cases, lots of cases. Then of course you've got legislation and various other links to international legislation, statutory instruments, and then you've got the decisions, directives and so on. Then after that, again, treaties and all this sort of stuff that you need to look at if you're looking for something specific when you're doing a particular answer or whatever it might be. And then you've got the preface. Now do always read the preface, because that will tell you why they've come up with the new edition and what's actually in it that's different from the previous edition. And by the way, with any of these textbooks, make sure you have the current one, because what is happening at the moment in the legal world is that there's a lot of activity, a lot of change taking place, and you must be up to date if you can. As I say, we've given it a title, and this is what we say about the book. It's been recently published by Routledge. It's the 5th edition of what is deservedly well regarded as a title, which through successive editions has supported student learning in an important area of law. And it's one that's developing because many syllabuses today have EU law, or whatever you want to call it, the European Union, European law itself. That is actually almost effectively a mandatory subject, because it does overflow very much into what we do in our own domestic law. Readers should be aware, say the expert authors, that competition law has directly affected the pricing and availability of goods and services, such as, for example, petrol, milk, cheese, electronic and electrical products, air travel and the list goes on to include at least 28 different products and services, even TV rights for football and vitamins. Issues relating to competition law affect all our daily lives, therefore. Since the first edition was published, and ever since the fourth edition came out, much has changed in competition law, both within the EU itself, which of course has changed in its structure and composition, and the United Kingdom. And in view of the recent developments, the authors have aimed to maintain the book as a one-stop shop for undergraduates taking a course in competition law. And the latest edition, therefore, has been radically changed from the previous edition. The changes are too numerous for me to go into here, but let me just cite a couple of the important examples. There's a new chapter 3 on private enforcement, an area which has become the focus of legislative and policy developments at both UK and EU levels, and also what is referred to as the unique system of market investigations in the UK is reviewed in its own chapter 5. The book therefore reviews and examines the major competition law topics, and it focuses on cartels, which were first introduced in the fourth edition, mergers, enforcement, abuse of dominance, anti-competitive agreements, and of course market investigations. And students who are under pressure, as they always are of course, will appreciate the logical and consistent structure of each chapter. An overview at the beginning and key points discussion and further reading sections at the end, as I showed you. Extensively footnoted as it is, it's helpful and comprehensive as a resource for the student, and it also presents, I think, a scholarly and insightful examination of the subject that will appeal to practitioners, because it's not necessarily the easiest subject to follow. It's not that easy to teach, I can tell you as well, but it is actually quite difficult to follow, and you've therefore got to have particular thought processes brought in to try to understand what the EU are actually getting at and why we've got these particular rules. And for readers interested in further research, there are tables of cases, statutory instruments, UK and international legislation, and then decisions, directives, regulations, treaties and conventions, all listed at the front, which are directly sort of linked into the text. For readers befuddled by complex sounding specialist terminology, there's a glossary at the back, plus an index to aid navigation. So we think that practitioners and students alike will also benefit from the supporting online updates, as on both Angus and MacCulloch's Who's Competing blog. As I said, there's no companion website, so what you've got is that instead, so I think that will assist for those who like using computers very extensively, and that will be most students, of course, today. And of course, no alert student should ignore both authors' advice that competition-related issues are reported daily in the press, particularly, of course, in the Financial Times. Let me conclude by saying it's an erudite and convenient volume which should be considered an essential purchase by anyone wishing to acquire an enhanced understanding of what is a dynamic and continually evolving area of law. And the cited publication date is 2014. Now, the reason I'm showing this just again is to give you an update as to exactly what it's all about. But you can see that at the back there it's got a lot. Let me just go into the book itself a little bit. For instance, the Competition Act 1998, the Chapter 1 Prohibition. Now, for anyone who's brand new to this subject, you won't know what I'm talking about, but anybody who's got just a little bit of information about the area involved will know immediately what I'm talking about. Things like vertical restraints, for instance, and all the other difficulties. Then you've got guidelines which come into it and so on. And then if you go earlier on, enforcement of EU and competition law, a very important area. And as I indicated before, key points, discussion and further reading, very useful indeed. And the glossary, which I didn't show earlier, is there, which again does help, because there's a lot of words which you probably will need to just check to make sure you know what they actually mean, or what you think you may know what they mean, but it's worth looking at the glossary just to check. Can I thank the two authors and Routledge very much for this excellent book. I'm sure if you're doing this subject at whatever academic level, you'll find this invaluable. I certainly wish I'd had it when I was doing this subject rather longer ago than I care to remember, because we didn't really have very much on the market at that time. But since then, all these books have come along. So thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.